Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's about to get ugly.
I'm
Oh
raising my
boy, it's about
for a
to
minute.
get ugly.
It's gonna be a fight.
There's going to be a fight. So here we are today, Aging Parent Trap X podcast and YouTube channel. I'm here with Nikki Flynn with Elite Preparation Services and Julie Cook with Generational Transitions. I am Allison Newland with Platinum Properties of Florida in the greater Tampa area. And we are here to tell you that you are not alone if you are dealing with your aging parent and helping them transition in their senior years. Specifically, what do you do when they have to move out of the house, care decisions, things like that? Because if you're a Gen Xer like we are, then you are having these conversations more and more often. And so we decided to talk about it. And so we're going to talk today about when siblings disagree about the care decisions for their parents and also the housing, like what to do with the house decisions. It can get ugly. Now, I am an only child and I did not have to deal with someone disagreeing with me other than my mother, which that's a whole nother YouTube podcast situation right there. Because what I wanted to do with the house and what I wanted to do with the care, that was what I thought I was making the best decisions for her or helping her make those decisions. But I didn't have anybody to disagree with me other than her. But I know Nikki's got some experience. Julie's got some experience. I've seen it firsthand with clients of mine. And again, I'm just going to let somebody jump in and talk about this because Nikki said something. She said, it's about to get ugly.
Yeah. So when you don't have the documents in place nominating who has a say, and there is fighting between siblings, it will get ugly. If there is fighting about care, then what happens is the facility will step in, and Julie can speak to this. Sometimes a person gets appointed over them until the family goes to court and gets appointed guardianship through a court system because they don't want messiness, they don't want the headache, they don't want the drama, and they definitely do not want a lawsuit.
Right. They don't want the liability. Right.
Yeah, so that's the ugly side because then when it goes to court, now everybody has to hire attorneys. Now you're racking up all these costs. For what? Now, if the family would have just sat down and done the planning ahead of time and nominated, this is the child I want speaking for me on my behalf. Because if they go to the courts, the court is not going to hear their 20, 30, 40 year plus drama. They're just basically going to say, okay, you look good on paper. Tell me why you should be nominated. And even though the other one might not look good on paper, is the one you want nominated because they're more compassionate, have more heart. They're going to listen to what your wishes are. They might not actually get picked because the court's going to say, oh, yeah, you look easy. You look good. I'm going to go ahead and stamp you your guardian. And now your wishes are not going to be honored because the person that you originally wanted is not the one that is appointed.
That's such a good point. I think because in a situation like this, emotions get so high. And that's the thing to consider as people are ready to make rash decisions, quick decisions, and just take a breather and relax for a minute before you get, like Nikki said, to that point. Nobody wants to go to court and try and fight all of this out. So take a minute, try and settle it civilly, if at all possible, if you can do it. I had a situation recently, interesting, where the children of a senior wanted a different care plan than the senior themselves wanted. They had some concerns and wanted a different setup. But they didn't have power of attorney and the senior had capacity. So even though the siblings had concern, they wanted addressed and the community heard them out. At the end of the day, the senior had capacity, the senior makes the call. So I think sitting down together and saying, is there a reasonable way that we can accommodate all of this is so important, and trying to tone down emotions because emotions just get so wrapped up in a situation like this so quickly. The other thing that I've run into when we're talking about emotions is you have a child, and I had this, who had threatened somewhat jokingly, somewhat not jokingly, if you don't behave, I'm going to put you in a home. I'm going to put you in a home. And then we get to a point where the senior needs the home. And now they're like, no, you said you wouldn't do this. That was all, So I think sitting down, even if you have to get a third party to come in and help mediate, before you get to where we have to try and do guardianship and all of this to work it out. That's so important. You don't want to go to that level.
No, and I think that
Mm.
there's with anything, like there's a certain amount of denial as a parent is aging. Like, I can handle this, I can live here, I want to stay in my home, I don't need help. I'm gonna disguise like what's really going on here. Remember, many times the adult children live not close by. Maybe they live out of state. They don't know exactly what's going on day to day. And, mom, dad, they're just saying that everything's fine. And you can maybe sense that something is not quite right. But the parent is, putting off the inevitable of, I'm going to have to either have a decision made for me or make the decision myself. And you know, I'm grateful that my in-laws, they just said, we're done. We can't live in this house anymore, and please help us find something. And one of their daughters helped find them a place and to go to. But when they were done, they were done. And I was shocked. They had lived in that house literally for probably 40 years. But it was almost like an overnight decision once they made it. They didn't have to be coerced. They didn't have to be anything. And I say coerced is probably or convinced is a better word than coerced.
Coaxed. Coax.
Oh, they didn't have to be convinced. They knew, like, hey, we can't manage to live here on this 2-acre property anymore, right? We can't be here out in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. And it wasn't really nowhere, but you know what I'm saying. But so, some people make the decision like that. And then you have a person like my mother who refused to look at assisted living communities, refused to do any searches on the internet, nothing, wouldn't do any of it, like for a year. And then all of a sudden, she, has a little slip. She can't get up off the ground, ends up in the hospital, and then never, ever, ever comes home again. And whoa, okay, everything has to be, decisions have to be made pretty immediately. And, that kind of stuff happens. And so, the having things in place ahead of time is always the best plan, and your wishes record it, right? And everybody talking about it. And then if you're disagreeing, just step back and take a beat and be like, it's not really worth all this fighting. I just can't. I guess people are scared, right? Many people are
Mhm.
scared, like, oh, I'm going to lose my parent. I'm not ready for this time. Whatever. They're scared. So emotions do run high with
I
what to
think
do.
that's a big point too, because everybody loves their parent. Probably all of the siblings want to do what's best. They're not trying to be difficult. They're just coming from different perspectives. And like you said, they're scared. They're scared about losing the parent. They're scared about the financial obligation that could come with this. Are they going to be on
Mhm.
the hook for that? So there's a lot of stuff on the backside of it that appears like they're being difficult when really they're just scared about the unknown. And so it comes across as being difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the more you do to know that, there are different options available that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg to just prepare in advance. Having a conversation does not cost anybody any money, right? Just to have the
Right.
conversation and try and air it out. And I guess that, family dynamics can be difficult for some people. I'm hoping that that's not the way it'll be for my kids. I always tell them they're so lucky to have each other. And they're always like, you're so lucky you only have yourself. And I'm like, no, I'm not. It's not. It sounds like it's great, but it's really not. To have
Mhm.
somebody to lean on and to always have that, person there, that's who you lean on after mom and dad are gone, are your siblings. But I know that not everybody has, I know people have different upbringings and stuff, I guess. I don't know. It's hard. So there's not a blanket statement, I guess. But then
Yeah.
what to do with the house, and siblings disagreeing about what to do with the house that mom and dad, that can get really ugly because if they become, if the power of attorney for mom or dad decides, well, we have to sell this house, and the other siblings are like, no, it was my dream to live there. They might have to buy the house from mom and dad to have the house. And then there's some serious, aggravation, like, oh, I should get to buy the house for 100,000 and the house is worth 500,000. I mean, you can see where this can all go totally sideways if people are unreasonable or greedy and just want to stick it to the
Mhm.
sibling that was always the favorite growing up or something, right?
Yeah. If I usually always advise my clients, this is why we do the planning, because if you have a game plan, number one thing is, yes, I know you might love your children and you want to leave something for them, but if you need to sell that house for your care, then you're selling the house for your care.
Right.
Like that's you have to put you first. At what point do you stop putting them first when they're fully grown adults? Like, you did your job. Now it's going to be time to take care of yourself. So if the house needs to be sold for your care, then that is what needs to be done. And the kids need to be okay with that. But if it's talking about selling the house because mom and dad have passed, then it's a different situation. If there's no planning involved, now it's getting ugly because now people are hiring attorneys. There's outside in their ear talking to them, telling them, oh no, you get this, you deserve this, your
Mm.
parents promise you this. And you've either got spouses or friends or other family members that are just bickering in somebody's ear. And if there is no planning in place, that means it's going through probate. And that means that it's now public knowledge. And there's going to be creditors and disgusting people putting in claims, just like those evil people in other people's ears. So it's just, it leads to a whole mess of things. And I look at it like, for us living here in Florida, we're being harped on right now. Have a plan, have an evacuation plan,
Mm.
because you don't want to put other people's lives at risk when you don't listen and heed the warnings.
Like for
Okay, it's the same
hurricane
thing with,
season.
yeah, it's the same exact thing for estate planning. Like, have a plan.
It's a
Like,
different type of hurricane season.
yeah.
Is what
Good
it is.
analogy.
And
Yeah.
I'm more afraid of those hurricane seasons than our
Yeah.
hurricane seasons.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
Have,
So, you just you want to help your family and you want to have a plan. You want to have things prepared. And if you don't want to talk about it, there's easier ways to kind of just go about having discussions without saying the harsh words, trying to be soft and gentle about the conversation without saying, when I'm dead. Like, that's kind of abrupt and rude and it's kind of offensive to some people and they're not ready to have those conversations. So when you kind of sugarcoat it and you make it all soft and fluffy and you just say, okay, do you have a plan? Like, what family member would you like to have this? If something were to happen and you got really sick, like, who do you want taking you to doctor appointments? That's a little bit easier to have
yes.
softer discussions with them rather than being so abrupt. So you just want to find the right person to be able to have those conversations to make that whole process a lot easier with them. So that way they're more open and inviting to the conversations to be able to get those things done. So that way they're not stressing and causing more issues later on down the road.
I read an article recently and it was really interesting. The whole family was part of a business, all of them. They were all part of a business. And, it was a lot to always be family business. But then when the parents got to a point where they, needed to go to independent and assisted living facilities and that kind of thing. The siblings, and I thought this was really beautiful, they got together and they divvied up exactly what each one of them would be responsible for. Because they
Yeah.
because they lived close by because they were all part of this family
Yeah.
business. So one would take them to doctors, one would take them, let's say, grocery shopping, the other one would take them to and from family events, whatever it was. Each one of them had a certain thing so that not one person was completely overwhelmed with the entire process. I loved that.
That's
I
great. I
I
think
love
that's
that. How great would that be if
and
people
even
could
if you have
just get along and do that kind of thing? But
yeah, even if
that was
you
a
have
particular
siblings
situation.
that are spread out, what if they're out of state? Well, can you, you know what? Mom is lonely. Can you make sure that you call her on Tuesdays and Thursdays so she has a phone call to look forward to?
Mm,
Maybe the person who's local is tight. Hey, send them gas money periodically because they're running the family member all over town. Just little things like that to help share the load. I think that's a beautiful story. I love that.
yeah, I do. I like it. I saved it in our little group spreadsheet. I think I did. I think I did. I might be wrong. But okay, so the point of everything is, again, do your planning in advance. Have those hard conversations, or don't even try and make them hard. Just try and have some conversations. They can be gently approached with, hey, who would you want to drive you to and from doctor's appointments or things like that, just to kind of get it going and talking about, their care decisions and things like that. And also what they want to do with the house. I mean, having all of that stuff planned in advance is so important so it doesn't get ugly. We want to avoid that. Our contact information is in the description below. If you need to speak with any one of us, just feel free to reach out.